Canada, our home and native land. Grab a blanket and turn off your lights for 3 true ghost stories. The Tall Man in My House. Hey there, my name's Haley. I'm 15 and from Canada. Disclosure, I'm really bad at telling stories. This is my first story I've ever told anyone, even though I don't really think it's scary because I've dealt with stuff like this before. But anyways, let's start the story. So this happened 2 years ago. I was home alone one night, and I always had an uneasy feeling in my house. But that night, I was eating in my room, and I fell asleep and I had sleep paralysis. When I fell asleep, my face was towards my closet and my bedroom door, and when I opened my eyes, I saw my closet door wide open, and then I hear faint breathing coming from my bedroom door. I looked over there, and I see this huge dark figure, and then I hear children and demonic screaming. I look at the closet, and there are these 2 children looking at me and smiling, and I hear footsteps coming closer to me, but I did not want to look. Even though that is the case, I can feel the dark figure's presence right in front of me, and I felt his hand touch my head. I instantly woke up and I hoped it was a bad dream or something, but when I did look around my closet, my bedroom door, and all of my drawers were open. But yeah, that happened. This was my most scary story that has ever happened to me. My other stories are minor and nothing special. Okay, bye. By the way, I love your voice and your live streams. Canadian Ghost Story. Hey, here is the typed up version of my story from February 25th live stream. I recently moved out of this house. It had 6 people living in it, all of which are musicians, and was too loud to live there for the long term. But after the different creepy instances in the house, it is most likely best that I had moved out. When we first moved into that house, there had been an old woven rocking chair in the corner of the main room in the basement. On it was a paper sign that had written on it, "Please do not move this chair." While most of us wanted to respect the request of whoever left the sign there, we had one skeptical roommate that wanted to rearrange the room to be more band-friendly. So he moved the chair, along with the sign, out of the room and underneath the stairs and a couch in the corner where the chair used to be. The same week that the chair was moved underneath the stairs, I had my door open and was laying in my bed with my back against the wall. From my room, I could see the stairs as well as the chair underneath it. Here, I was working on my computer. I was suddenly spooked by the sound of a loud knock right next to my head. No one was home. I had been completely home alone. How could anyone knock underground, besides in such a purposeful place? I had to keep looking ahead at my laptop and pretend that I heard nothing, scared that I might create a worse response if I had made any sort of a reaction. Well, this was the only encounter that I had where I couldn't explain anything except for some sort of spiritual entity. The rest of my roommates do have their own experiences. While one of my roommates was in the jam space, she was sitting on the floor, working on some things by herself when she looked up and saw that there was an older woman sitting on the couch. She had mid-length white blonde hair and was slouched over, keep in mind to only herself. My roommate then quietly moved herself upstairs, making sure not to draw attention to herself and to just get away from the situation. She too had been home alone during that encounter. When she went to go tell her bandmates about this story, their bassist recalled that they had seen someone sitting on that couch as well. They went on to say that they had seen an older woman slouched over with mid-length white blonde hair before my roommate had even given a description of the ghost she had seen. Both of them had seen this ghost at different times, but saw the same thing nonetheless. There have been a few cases where different roommates thought they saw a figure in the upstairs hallway, walking from one room to another, but this, of course, seems like something that could be more easily reasoned than the other instances that I mentioned. At the moment, they still live in that house, and we have no real background of who or what these noises and figures could represent. But at least, for the moment, they seem harmless. All the best, and happy reading, Brendan. My creepy encounters. Hey, I am a 19-year-old Alaskan Native American. I live in the USA, but lived in Canada for the first part of my life. I was 10 years old when I had the second encounter. I lived in a rambler, and it was set up where my bedroom was at the end of our hallway, with a light switch right next to my door. I got up one night, still a little groggy from sleep, and stumbled out my door. I didn't turn on the light till I got halfway down the hallway when I got to the bathroom. I turned on the light, and had I not have frozen fear, I would have screamed. Down the hallway was a tall black, I want to say man, but it was so distorted and smoky. At that moment, I tried to search for any human features but saw none. Where its face should be, there was only a black smoke screen of nothing. I automatically stumbled back and rushed into my parents' room. When I recapped what had happened to my parents, they brushed it off as nothing. But seeing my fear, they let me sleep with them that night. I forgot to mention, my cat that had grown up with me had died earlier that day. He was at the vet, and I was consulted as to when I wanted to go and check up on him. I heard a faint whisper in my ear. Now. I brushed it off as nothing, but told them my answer of now. I had another encounter not even a year later. I was joking around with my friends out in our game room, telling them the first story when the power went out. We all went silent as I started to freak out, reliving my first encounter. At that moment, I blacked out and woke up to my friends all extremely freaked out. Some were even crying. What I've been told, the moment I blacked out, the fan turned on, and I started mumbling incoherent sentences and started shaking slightly. I woke up after that happened for 30 seconds. They all left after that, and my parents still didn't believe me. My next story is so much more creepier as freaky and cool it was. I was 13 years old and was in the woods with my best friend and her younger siblings. Her younger siblings wanted to go for a walk in the woods, but didn't want to go on the path. They wanted to go deep in the forest, and when we told them we had to stick to the path, they ran off. Of course, me and my best friend ran after them, but she broke ahead and I was left alone. I stopped to take a break and was pretty out of breath due to my asthma. I stood up and looked around, utterly lost, when I heard it. A low whisper. Sam, help them. I was freaked out and turned around and saw no one. I freaked out because I swear I heard it right next to my ear. It was a low male voice. It was low and scratchy, and it sent a shiver down my spine. Then I heard something else that froze me. I heard a low growling. It was right behind me, and when I was able to turn around, all I saw were huge glowing eyes. The creature growled again before straightening up and leaving. It was a huge black wolf. Its eyes were the part I remember most. Its piercing yellow eyes still send shivers down my spine. My first encounter was by far the creepiest for me. As a young child, I always had a friend next to me. But the friend that came over the most was my best friend. She was about 2 years older than me, but I never saw her at any school or with any other people. Her name was Wendy, and she was a beautiful girl, long straight bleach blonde hair. She always had a pink bow in her hair and a beautiful yellow play dress on, much like a late 1800s or early 1900s play dress, always clean and crisp, like it was freshly ironed. We would lock ourselves up in my room and play with my dolls and stuffed animals for hours, talking and laughing away. My mother would come in, amused, and ask me if I would like lunch. I would always respond with, "Yes, and can you make Wendy a peanut butter and honey sandwich? Crust cut off, please." My mother would always laugh and say she could. She would bring it in, and I would eat my lunch happily, while Wendy just sat, glaring at her sandwich. When I asked her why she wasn't eating, she said she wasn't hungry and wanted to go home. She would walk out of the room, out of the house and down the street. This went on for years, but one day she just stopped. She never came over again, and I never saw her again. The creepiest part is, when I asked my mother about her in 7th grade for an essay, she looked at me amused and told me I was remembering wrong and never had a friend named Wendy. When I described her perfectly and with such detail, my mother paled and told me that we never had anyone come over that looked like that. The worst part is, she did not believe me and told me it was just an imaginary friend. But I remember so vividly touching her and holding her hand as we adventured out in the forest next to my house.